Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Adapting to Change with Confidence, presented by our Director of Business Solutions at Watermark Learning, Dr. Susan Heidorn. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'll be assisting and moderating our session today. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with all of you in the email after the webinar. We do encourage participation throughout the session, so please use the chat or that Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Dr. Heidorn.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. And today we are talking about adapting to change with confidence. So we're going to give you some tips on how to manage change. We're going to talk a little bit about that because I'm sure none of you are in change, right? It seems constant. So we're going to talk about building resiliency to change. So we're going to talk about the need for resiliency, understanding the transition process. We all go through change. And then we're going to talk about some activities you can do that you can leave here with to start developing some resiliency to change and being able to sustain that because change is coming at us all the time. And so what do we do with that? How do we manage? And I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, it's just no matter where you're at, people get inundated, and it's a strange world that's coming fast and furious. So we're going to talk about that. So one of the things, and I love this concept, and maybe some of you have seen it. It's we live in a VUCA world. Well, what is VUCA is actually an acronym for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Anybody feel that? So it actually came, interestingly enough, from the U.S. Army War College and the military leadership in the late 1980s. And I just recently came across it, and I thought, you know what, that just really is appropriate for today. Whether it's, external environmental changes, organizational changes, there's just a lot. And it's often used in strategic thinking and kind of being able to look at change. So one is certainly looking at the volatility of the change, right? It just happens quick. It's unexpected. You thought things were set, and now they're moving. As my friend says, shifting sand, right? You feel like the sand is like, oh no, I thought it was on a nice safe space, and it wasn't moving, and now it does. And so it's, you can look at anything that's out there. Variants of, COVID still in our world, variants of the flu. One day it's this, one day it's next, so it's the volatility of what's going on. And then kind of uncertainty. It's like, we kind of, as people, I think most of us like a little bit, a little bit of uncertainty is okay, but it would be nice to have some certainty, some consistency, some things that's like, oh, well, this, I expect the sun to come up in the morning, and there are times where things that are uncertain, it's just like, hey, where did this come from? And then complexity, things are always more complex. Even when we introduce change into our own worlds, we think, oh yeah, this shouldn't be too bad, and then it has ramifications that we don't realize, right? And so something that you thought was so simple, a change in the process in an organization, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just, okay, we're doing this. We're using this system now. We're going to use this system for our payroll. Okay, not that big a deal. Yeah, we got to learn a new technology, but it's always complex because what happens is one change impacts other changes, impacts other change, and it's that adage of just a little pebble, and it it moves out from there. So it's usually more complex. And then thinking about the ambiguity, back to doing my COVID example. There were a lot of things we didn't know. We didn't know how it was transmitted, how did it start? Should we be wearing masks or should we not be wearing masks? And should we be getting shots? Should we not be getting shot? I mean, there's just a whole everything was ambiguous. It's like, so how do we deal with this? What should we do? There's wasn't just a nice, easy set of answers. So if you looked at COVID, it was volatile. It had a lot of volatility. It's and different variances at various speeds, right? There was uncertainty about, who was it going to affect, who was it going to impact, how fast was it going to go. There was complexity. Every time um, you thought, oh, this is not going to be a big deal. It was a big deal, right? And because it was complex, and then the ambiguity. We weren't sure how it was all transmitted. And so, do any of you feel like that? Living in it, because you look at any change in organizations. I'm going to apply it to my own organization. We've had lots of changes. Educate 360 has purchased a lot of organizations. So now we went from a really tiny organization to huge organization. Um, and as much as it's exciting, but you feel like you're gonna hang on because the roller coaster's coming and that big dip, is coming. So there's always, anytime there's changes, there's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So I feel like we all today live in a VUCA world. And so because of that, of course, as we look at that change concept, is that organizations, which we're kind of focusing on, are in a constant state of change, a constant state of flux, a constant state of uncertainty and ambiguity and all those. Why? Because, maybe we're creating new processes, products and services. Okay, so that is a constant change. Customers want new things. We now have tariffs. So do we process it here? Do we, you know, do some of our processing in other countries? Now that's a change that we have to deal with. Services, customers want new services. You might be a customer in some situations, and to your organization, upgraded technology. We purchased, I think, 7 different organizations. Now we're trying to align and move everything to one standard technology, which is awesome because then we don't have 3, 4 different types of technology, and yet there's an upheaval because you're in between. Are we using the old system? Are we using the new system? When we're going to convert over? Process improvement efforts. Everybody has their own processes. And if we sit on our laurels, you've all seen this in the news, different organizations kind of going under. And it's like, have you kept up? Have you kept up with the world? Have you kept up with the changing customer demands? Have you kept up with, and if you don't improve your processes, you may not. So we're always trying to improve our processes, making them streamlined, making them easier. Um, yeah, Julie, thank you for your comment. She says, I find it hard to keep my perspective in check and compartmentalize between work and personal. Feels like a domino effect. Isn't that so true? Yeah, so it definitely is a domino effect. And, that's the other thing that I think makes it really crazy is that you have changes in your personal world as well as your organization, and then it's just like, how do I manage these? In fact, which is why I was a little late, my stepfather is in the hospital. He had he had a heart valve put in last Tuesday, so he had open heart surgery because his veins weren't well enough to do it through his veins. Anyway, one thing led to another, and I was just on a call from the nurse who wants to they want to jolt his heart. So because he has arrhythmia now, and so they were gonna needed permission to do that. And so I go, I gotta go. I've got a whole class waiting. But talking about change, I'm trying to support my stepfather and who's down in the city as I live in Minneapolis. My mother's up north supporting her. She's 86. She was down here for a little while, for a week, but then she went home thinking things were fine, and he's still in the hospital. And so you got all that with work, with all the changes, right? And I know you are all in that world too, right? You got your kids or your elderly parents or the dog. The dog was there. I mean, just so much coming at you. We've had to take them to the vet. I mean, there's just lots of things. Reorganizations, mergers, new methodologies, new ways of doing things, new certifications that we have to get, culture. So I'm interested. What changes are you seeing that is kind of in your organization? Yeah, a lot of changing demands on all aspects. I love that, Barbara. By the time you feel like you're caught up, it's just like, okay, I can breathe, right? I just like, okay, I'm good. Oh, no, no, something's changed, right? So it's just crazy out there. Yeah, executives forced to pivot and align practices with new guidance, restructuring of the organization and teams. I can't tell you how many restructurizations we did. I've been with this company 6 years. I'm on my fourth manager. All good stuff, but it's a change. You got to get used to, reporting to somebody else. Yes, yes. The Doge actions. I have had students in my classes that in the class, during the teaching of the class, they go, I just found I was laid off. Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about a shock. Software changes, laws and regulations we're expected to implement. Flavor of the month. Yeah. It's like, the executives went golfing with their buddy or something. There it is. We have a new change. Severe organizational changes without pre-planning. That is so true. And it seems like we forget that we do have something called organizational change management to help people through the change, but we tend not to focus on that, I'm sadly to say. Restructuring ripple effects. three managers in 13 months. Hey, you're doing better than I was. um, yeah, in my career, we work on projects. Our role changes. Yeah, a lot of VUCA, like a lot of VUCA moments. I love it. Thank you for sharing. Shiny penny. Yeah, and it is just trying to take one day at a time to stay sane. So we're going to kind of give you some tips to be able to do that, because I need these tips myself and have tried to practice them, and I'm hoping that you'll get a few tips too. So thinking about, we're just kind of on change, focus on, if we look at organizational change, think about how it impacts us, even personal change, whatever. It's like, it's how we do our work. It's when we do our work. Do we work in the office? Oh, now we're working at home. No, 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 we're gonna all come back to the office again. I mean, talk about what do I do about the kids or the dog while I'm gone? I mean, we figured we all got settled. I can work, a lot of times, at least in our state, my son and my daughter both work from home Monday and Friday. They go into the office Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Now that's changing. I mean, there's just a lot of things. It's not just like, oh, just show up to the office, right? What do we do with the what do we do with the kids? What do we do with the dogs? What do we, whatever you have, or now I have to drive and just, waste an hour and a half to drive there and an hour and a half back. And that's just, 3 hours out of my life. Thank you very much. So it's how we do our work when we're getting back into the groove, right? Our philosophy, it's what we care about. How are we going to do that? Our values, our relationships. You get used to working for one boss and you got that down. It's like, okay, we're in the groove. I know how to communicate with them. I know what they're looking for. And then I get a new boss. And I mean, I have to say they're all great bosses. And the nice thing, the boss, the last two at least asked me, how should I work with you? Which is nice, because that helps. It's like, okay, let's have a little bit of communication here. But assumptions have to change. It's like, well, I assume that they want that. Well, that's not always true. How do I need to relate to people? How do we manage our time? That is really kind of scary. So there's just, and there's a bazillion more things that you can say the consequences of change. And like I said, I kind of, you sit there and you watch, I don't know if any of you watch older TV, but you go, God, it seems like things were easier back then. I don't know that they were, but it seems like I feel like I'm in warp speed. Does anybody feel like that? Warp speed as you're going through change? I'm a Star Trek fan, so I probably had too much Star Trek, but oh, tornado. I love that analogy. And so you get change fatigue. It's like, oh my gosh, just stop the merry-go-round. I want to get off. So this is the personal transition process and resilience, and I'm just going to go through this lightly because I really want to focus on helping helping us survive all these changes, but I do want to talk about the transition process, because what resilience does, building our resilience, is help us go through this a little bit easier. So this is actually from Virginia Satir, modified by George Davis. And kind of thinking about productivity and time, right? Because what happens to productivity when you learn something new, whether it's a new process or a new product or a new way to work, or anytime we do that, it's a learning curve. And so we have a dip, right? And so productivity goes down. I've worked on projects for 35 years, various projects. Sometimes they're IT projects, sometimes they're business projects, it could all kinds of projects. And a lot of times they'll bring in something new and go, oh, we're going to improve processes to increase productivity, or we're going to bring in this new software solution to increase productivity. And then they get disappointed because it takes longer. It's like, well, this was supposed to save us time. Yeah, it is. Maybe at the end, but not right away, because we got to learn it first. We're just slower at learning it. If we've done a process for the last 10 years, we can do it in our sleep. Now we got to think about those steps. It takes longer. And so, but as time goes on, we will probably get faster. So you have the status quo, that's here today. And then change is an event. Okay, we got a new software application, and we got a new process. We got a new product we need to support. We just put out a new service. That's the event. And a lot of times, organizations go, okay, check, implemented, done. Now let's move on to something else. What they don't realize is that people go through a transition process. And just because you had the event, just because you implemented something, doesn't mean we're all there yet, because we have to change our behaviors, our attitudes, our mindsets, etc. And so we have resistance. It's just like, well, wait a minute, and so that resistance could be just, where did this idea come from? Wait a minute, stop the presses. And then we might say, okay, well, that kind of makes sense. And so we may be able to let go, and then we live in that chaos stage. I know when I went through this, which is really helpful when I've been laid off a number of times, but when I was first laid off, I had been working in banking, and I was laid off, and I'm going, oh my gosh, because our whole department got laid off because we worked on projects and they were selling the bank, and so they didn't need us anymore. Our whole team was laid off. Surprised, because we thought our boss was going to be laid off. talk about interesting. No, instead our boss remained, and our whole department of, well, it was only 6 people, but still got laid off because we were just project managers, business analysts, working on new projects. So that was the change event, coming in one day at work and having a meeting at 11 o'clock and saying, hey, you're no longer here. It's like, oh, just like the people that are in my class. They go, I have to leave, I got a meeting, and then they come back going, I've been laid off. Wow. So sometimes it's just like, okay, the event happened. Now, wait a minute here. Am I happy? Am I sad? Is it, wait, what does this mean to me? And I know when I was laid off, it's like, okay, surprising. And I had just bought a house, 3 months earlier. Thank goodness I signed off on the house before I got laid off. And I had 2 little kids. I'm going, oh my gosh, what do I do? And so then I went into, it's like, okay, well, I have to move forward, let go. And then, the chaos, it's like, sometimes I was really excited about new opportunities. Other times, like, I'm never going to find another job in my entire life. What you tell yourself, crazy things. And then, eventually, I did move into consulting because I had worked with a lot of consultants on my projects, and they said, just go into consulting. It's like, I don't know how to be a consultant. What do I know about that? Well, I ended up being one for, 20 some years, but so I did get an inside vision, but I practiced, what does it mean to be a consultant? How do I sell myself? And, I eventually get to the status quo, but there's that, you know, personal transition. And this is where, we need resilience to be able to get to that new state. I love Edwin. The first time you saddle a horse takes longer after you learn to tighten the cinch. After the horse breathes out and a few other tricks they do go smoothly. Yeah, I love it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah. So it is. It's messy, it's emotional. And I wish organizations would take this into account because this is about people. It's not like you can just plug and play. Here's a person, no, we're going to put them there. It doesn't work that way as much as, we think we'd like to, because I've worked with organizations like that. Oh, we'll just get another one. We'll just get another project manager. Just get another develop. Well, it's not a plug and play. It takes time for them to understand, get up to speed, etc. So I'll get off that soapbox. But let's talk about resiliency in this VUCA world we're in. So resiliency is really about bouncing back from life's difficulties. Could be personal, could be organizational, it's all coming at us at once. And so it's a process where we can adapt to the challenging life experiences, which we're all feeling, mental, emotional, behavioral flexibility, and adjust ourselves, and I like that, Edwin. We're not widgets, exactly. So resiliency is being able to survive, to bring us to the future, to bounce back, and to not let us be overcome. And sometimes, I don't know about you, but it feels that way, right? What resiliency is not, though, and this is important because you go, oh, well, let's talk about what resiliency is, but what it's not, I just want to set the table because it's really important. It doesn't mean we're not going to have distress. Okay, we're not going to have emotions about it. It's just going to be fine. We will still experience those. One day you probably think it's a good idea. The other day, like I do, it's, oh God, this is a horrible idea. What were we thinking? So just being able to deal with them better, though. It's just like, rather than having them control me, how can I control it, right? Resiliency is also not for the few. Oh, you're just really good at that. You're just I don't know how you do it, right? We can all learn to be more resilient. It's not rocket science. We just have to do it with intention and think about it. Reaching the goal at all costs. It's like, oh, we got to be resilient. Sometimes it needs to be some thought space on when do we persevere, and maybe when we just need to, bow out. The other thing, and this is key because I know we're all dealing with this, but I'm going to speak for myself because you're all probably better at this, but I don't always reach out for help. And so I'm going, oh, I'm going to go it alone, be that pioneer. But it's about being vulnerable and reaching out for help. And that is part of resiliency. We don't have to do this by ourselves. Find people that can help you. So that's kind of the vulnerability. It is, Jacqueline. It's so right. Vulnerability is scary, and admitting that, maybe this is a little bit more than I can do on myself. I need someone. It is vulnerable. And hopefully we've built relationships and other people, kind of feel that way, and we can help each other, Yeah. So let's get into the various types of resiliency. There's psychological resiliency, the ability for us to motivate ourselves to do something difficult. And you've probably all had situations where it's just like, ooh, not sure if I can do that. but your mind only knows what it tells it. So we're kind of sitting there and thinking about, okay, what do I need to do? I need to change my mindset. I need to kind of talk to myself. And so, if there's a thing, it's like, you know what, I can get over this. I can do this. I am going to rise to the challenge. Um, and so there is a psychological resistance where, if we need to do something that is more difficult, you know, we can kind of think about how do we want to do that. The other one is emotional resilience, evoking positive emotions when we need them. Because I always kind of think, well, Susan, you're a positive person. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm going, ugh, but staying calm is like, okay, kind of invoke that, maybe they have positive intentions. So if you get maybe that crappy customer on the line, not just yelling at you because you happen to be there. They're trying to kill the messenger. You know, realizing that, and we're going to talk about this later, is emotional resilience, not letting them overtake you, but when there is pressure to be able to deal with our emotions. There's social resilience. This is where, when you can, reach out to others. And I would say too, not only you reaching out, but here's the key: you reach out. So you can reach out to them when they need social support, because you know what? We all need, these days, it's so crazy. We all need help. We all need each other. So it's not just about, oh, I need help, but it's like, let me also help you. Together, we're much stronger than just one. How do we do that? So it's supporting other people through this as well as ourselves, because you know what, supporting others makes you stronger. It makes you more social resilient, because it's you building that strong trusting relationship. And then there's physical resilience. you know um, Maybe beating your time on a marathon, or even running a marathon. I'm not a runner, so I applaud those that are. But yeah, that physical resilience. Can I do this? Can I go to the challenge? So those are some of the four types of resilience we need. So these are the 8 ways, and this is not the be all end all. I'm just going to tell you this, but these are 8 key ways, common ways that you can prove your resilience to change, since the change is going to happen anyway. How do we cope with it? How do we build that resilience, rather than just having it overwhelm us? And there's many other ways, but we picked kind of the top 8. So the first one, of course, is understanding the change. My Not my current boss, but the one before, said, Susan, how do I need to work with you? Which I thought was just really critical. And I said, okay, first of all, don't ever tell me what to do, but ask me. If you ask me, I'm probably 150% there. You tell me, I'm just going to tell you, I'm digging my heels. I don't know what it is about me. I'll just tell you that. And I said, the other thing is I need to know why. You give me the why, I can do a lot of things. But if you don't give me a why and a good reason for it, ain't happening. So it's kind of like, well, why? Why are we changing? Ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories, and I bring change into people's lives because I work on projects, right? So first is getting myself to understand why, and then helping others understand why. Why are we doing this? Why from an organizational point of view? Why from a departmental point of view? Why from an individual point of view? Why? People who have the why, this is a very old quote. He who has a why to live can almost bear anyhow. Oh, okay, I understand now. So it's understanding the context. It's understanding, what is the current pain we're experiencing? Why do we have to get off that burning platform? Well, we can't stay there, or we will cease to be in business. Oh, okay. And then I got to move to the future because I kind of like it here. I like my job. And then understanding what the future looks like. It's like, okay, that future's like over there on the other side of the cliff and there's an abyss. And how do I, jump over that? So understanding the context, understanding the future. Do I have a job? Do I have a position? How am I going to work with others? That's one of the things. Like I said, we have been doing massive changes in our own organization and we've been going through all of this. And you know what's my position in the future? Who do I report to in the future? What is my job description in the future? How am I, what things do I need to do? And so once I have an understanding of that, it's like, oh, so then I can kind of see myself in that. It's kind of like a lot of you probably went to college, and in high school years, you probably go, God, I wonder what it's like to be in college. You hear rumors and myths, some of it true, some of it not true, but you kind of picture yourself. What is it going to be like when I'm in college? And then what is it going to be like when I get first job? Or what is it going to be like when I move cross country? And, so our brains just kind of naturally look for that future state. And the more we can understand it, it's like, okay, now I need to go here to get to the grocery store and here to the pharmacist and here to, oh, I got kids school because I got a new school. I mean, whatever it is, we kind of have it make those mental maps, right, in our brain because we know it's going to be different. The other thing, of course, and this is hard, mitigate your stress. And chocolate doesn't always work. It works a little bit, but doesn't totally work. I don't know if any of you eat chocolate when you're stressed. I happen to. So one of the things, of course, is we got to determine, are we stressed, right? What are the signs? We all have different stresses. Sometimes, I mean, I get stressed in my shoulders, so my shoulders get like stiff and it's like my neck gets stiff. Sometimes you get clammy hands, or it's like, God, I feel like I'm out of breath. I mean, whatever those, we all have different stress signs, right? And so, first of all, we got to notice, it's like, you know what? I think I'm in stress because sometimes, at least I kind of like the threshold of stress is getting higher, and it's just like, maybe I need to come down. My chiropractor, when I go in and he kinks my neck because I hold my stress there, he's like, "You've been stressed a lot, haven't you?" And I go, "Huh, I guess so." so you have to pay attention to what your body's telling you, right? And then what is the event? What caused that stress? Did your kids cause the stress? Did the dog cause the stress? Is work stress? I mean, what is the event? And so you really need to understand, okay, why did that event make me stressed? You know, um, like we adopted my father's dog. He's since passed away, but somehow he just got yappy, and so I put him in the kennel before I did this because he's got a time frame where he wants to eat, and then if you don't feed him right away, immediately he starts barking at you, and it's like, oh, that's all I need right now. So he went into the kennel. He's very good about his kennel, but what is the event that causes you stress? Well, the dog's barking, and I'm trying to do a webinar. That isn't going to work too much, so then I'm going to get stressed. So just figuring out why does that cause you to stress? Like, why do people telling me what to do cause stress? I still haven't figured that out. But like I said, if you ask me to do something, I'm there. Identifying then what are those stress management strategies? Do you do yoga or Zen, or they have those things on the TV, those Zen moments, listening to, soft music, going for a walk. You have to figure out what those stress strategies are, because not getting stressed is not an option. We do get stressed. We're human people, human beings. So what, is going to reduce that stress besides chocolate and a lot of alcohol, which is not healthy? So thinking about, because I'll do some shoulder rolls. I'll get up and walk around. That walking seems to. My husband goes and works in his workshop. I mean, what are those stress management strategies that work for you? Read a book, just get away. Whatever that is, make sure you understand them and know them so that when you are stressed, you can go to them. Even at work, right? We're virtual, but when I was at work and I just would get out of the building and go somewhere else. Change the scenery, right? Figure those out because they are going to help you. Keep them in your back pocket. It's like, oh, I'm getting stressed. I need to calm down. So whatever that stress is, change your perspective. Okay. So our brains know just what we tell it. We can convince ourselves of anything. If anybody's purchased something, we still buy it from emotional reasons, and then we logically apply logic to make, oh yeah, that did make sense, all right? But it was still an emotional purchase. So if any of you are Star Wars fans, if you're looking at when Luke was on the Dagobah system with Yoda, and he looks in the cave and because he's training to be a great Jedi, and he asks you, "What's in the cave?" And Yoda goes, "Only what you take with you." And so then he goes in the cave and sees Darth Vader, who really isn't there. It was just in his brain. Why do I say that? It's just what he thought. Sometimes we have to reframe our thoughts, right? It's just like, okay, do I need to check in with my thoughts? Because if you have all that negative thoughts, it's going to be negative. How do we replace it with a positive mindset? How do we replace it with a growth mindset? So positive mindset is just having positive thoughts. And this is what I do. If any of you saw, I'm going to use another movie, White Christmas, and they say count your blessings instead of sheep at night. I do that. And not necessarily always at night, but then I thought, you know what? When I start looking down or get depressed or whatever, it's like, oh my gosh, what do I have to be thankful for? And it does. I mean, it's something simple, but it does change my mindset. It's like, no, it's not so bad. I have two beautiful children. I have two beautiful grandchildren. I mean, just sometimes you just say, okay, it's not what you don't have, it's what you have. So let's focus on that. The other thing that I love is the growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Because again, your brain only knows what you tell it. So if you tell it you can't do it, chances are you can't, because you already told yourself you can't. But what if you have a growth mindset, something to say, hey, you know what? I haven't done that before. Well, let's try it. No, I mean, there's certain things that I probably won't play football or anything, but maybe I could do tag football. I don't know. I'm a big football fan. So just having a growth mindset, and here's the epitome of growth mindset. This is from one of my colleagues that when I was consulting and we were on a plane going to a gig, and he was telling me about his mother who was at that time, she's passed away, but at that time she was probably in her 80s. She had a growth mindset. He said she wasn't like a normal mom. She was always trying to do something new, and she goes, you know what? I never acted. I'm gonna try out for the community play, or I haven't quilted. I'm gonna make a quilt. And then one day and this was about 20 years ago, she bought herself a computer and she told her son, no, you come over and tell me show me how to use this. I want to learn how to do a computer. I mean, talk about a growth mindset. I've never done it, but so let's go do it. And I've employed that over my years. Even when I was in graduate school working on my master's degree, I was fearful of speaking in front of people. Fearful. I mean, my paper would be rattling. I would hyperventilate and almost, want to throw up. I mean, it was horrible. Nobody could hear me because I was either talking too fast or talking too soft. And I said, this is ridiculous. Getting into what I need to get into. I need to facilitate workshops, do speaking, teaching, anything else. I need to kind of have a voice. How do I do that? It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to practice. Get opportunities. I'll volunteer and practice, practice, practice. But I said I'm not going just because I'm fearful, just because I'm nervous. I'm not going to let that stop me. So applying that growth mindset. How can I take this experience and learn from it? How can I to make it even if it's not positive, how can I learn from it? How can it make me stronger? How can I and this is not easy. None of this is easy. So I'm not saying, oh, just if the magic wand, here it is. It is not easy. But if you do it with intention, it helps. Self-control. All right. Embracing, it's called change agency. Agency is a sense of control you feel you have in your life. I'm a big control freak. I'm just going to say it right out. If any of you are with me, a high five. Uh, I, you know, I need control over my life to be less stressed. If I control it, I can, and I'm just going to tell you control is imaginary because I really don't have a lot of control, but I feel like I have control. So that makes me feel better, right? So sometimes, like all the changes that are in the organization currently, there's a lot I can't control. In fact, probably about 97% I can't control. So what I've learned to do is saying, okay, what can I control? Even when my kids were growing up, you think you can control your kids, but you really can. You're just thinking that, right? So what can I control? What are the tidbits? Well, I can control how I react to things. I can control my little piece of the world. And so thinking about what are those small actions, even if they're little, they make you feel better. It's like, oh, I can control that. And moving to small wins. So, leveraging your strengths, making those small wins. It's like, okay, I do have some control. I have control over me, control over, what's coming up. So having self-control. And like I said, a lot of times we don't get a whole lot of control, but maybe I can, figure out how I, put if nothing else, I have control over where I put this information. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, but just an example. Connecting with others, I talked about that already. Being able to reach out for help, to provide help. Connecting with others is huge. And I'm going to say I don't do this as well. I mean, some people are just maybe more social than I am. And I don't always reach out for help because it's like, you know what? My grandmother said, if you make your bed, you lie in it and you tie your own shoes. That pioneer spirit, right? I can do this, or could be anything. Who knows where I got it from? But so I realized though, when I share, and I have to be vulnerable, I'm not very good at that either, but it does help realizing that one, I'm not alone in feeling this. Two, that people actually care and will support me as well as I'm going to support them in situations. So connecting with others, and I think it's harder these days because a lot of us were virtual, but I will reach out to my colleagues, one that I've known for a long time, and sometimes I need 5 minutes. I just need to vent. Or I need your brain, or I need you to, can I see this in a different way, and then she does the same back to me. And, so I have a number of those colleagues. So even if I'm virtual, I can call them and say, hey, help, I need help. I just don't get this, and it's amazing when you think, oh, nobody's going to be there. There are people that are there. Managing your emotions. Guess what? We can't stop having emotions. It comes with us the day we're born, right? But we don't have to let them take over the world. We can control them, we can regulate them, we can say, and I'm kind of grumpy. Do I really want to be grumpy? Do I really, or thinking about, well, because I tend to be, I'm an extroverted thinker, if any of you have done Myers-Briggs. And so I kind of sometimes, especially when I'm in a hurry or stressed, I'll be very blunt, and then people take it personally, which I really didn't mean it that way. It just happens to be, it comes out of my mouth. And it's like, wait a minute here, that's not good. I don't need to take my emotions out on everyone else. I can determine which ones that I kind of need to control, and I can regulate them. I can't stop having them, but I may be able to minimize them or mitigate the impact that they have on other people, because our emotions do impact others. So kind of thinking about what can you do? What are those tips? What can you do to say, I don't want to react that way. I want to do something different. So when people, and which I've done, it was because I said I don't like being told what to do. It's like, I can stop and take a breath and go, you know what? I don't need to react because my normal MO would be just to, to yell back. Not that they yelled at me, but and then I'd say, you know what? I don't have to do that. I can have another option. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Can you tell me a little bit more about it? Can you tell me why? And that has really worked. I don't have to necessarily go with my gut emotion. I can sit back and say, okay, maybe they didn't mean it that way. I'm going to assume they have good intentions. Just give me a little bit more information so I know how to handle that. So I'm not saying I'm perfect, but it does help. Self-care. I'm not very good at this either. I'm kind of workaholic, but we need to take care of ourselves, especially in stressful times. And people always say that, hey, hon, take care of yourself. And it's like, yeah, 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 yeah. But you really, you need to, right? And it's just like, you need to eat right. You need to, we all exercise, but it is amazing because when you take care of yourself, then you have, certainly can take care of others in a lot better way. As you do self-care, you can manage your emotions better. I mean, there's just so much that comes from self-care and loving yourself first, so you can love others, and help others. So that is huge. I'm still a work in progress. I'm just going to admit that. And woohoo, celebrate progress. These are all habits that we need to get into. And so celebrate the little things. It's like, you know what? I didn't spout off when they told me what to do, or I stopped and listened before I said that's a stupid idea. Or I said, you know what? I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to do a little self-care right now. So it's not, so I wish I could say it's just like, oh, flip on the switch, just do this, it's magic. You got to find your own path. These are some ideas. But also note, one, you're human. As much as I like walking on water, thinking I can walk on water, except I live in Minnesota, so I can do that in the wintertime. But generally, I sink. So just take it easy on yourself and celebrate those little things. It's like, you know what? I reduced my stress today. And then they get to be habit, and that kind of brings us into being able to sustain our resiliency, is that we have to change our habits, you know. um First of all, because it's we normally, because especially when we're stressed and things are coming at us all the time and it's all the change, we just react without thinking about it. And so changing our habits, and they used to say, and at least I heard the adage, it's 30 days to do a habit, so if you're dieting or quitting smoking or whatever it is, changing your behaviors takes 30. But then I've read in the past years that it's like that's the minimum. It usually takes 30 to like 70 days, 68 days, according to research, to be able to change your habits. Because I said I can do anything for 30 days. It's like at 35, I fall off the bandwagon, whatever I'm doing. And for some reason, there's that threshold, that 30 days is not enough for me. So realizing like, wait a minute here, it's going to take, I'm going to maybe take a step forward, 2 steps back, but another step forward, and eventually I will get there. So I also have to, if I'm going to sustain my behaviors, those new resiliency patterns, I got to figure out, okay, are there any barriers that might prevent my success? Who can I leverage? Again, that's a connection, making those connections. What can I do differently? I don't have to do the same thing. That is a choice. And just because we have a habit of doing it doesn't mean it has to stay a habit. And what can you do to reinforce those new behaviors? So if you have those new behaviors, what's going to reinforce it so you don't slide back into the old behaviors? So with that, just an FYI, if you're interested in any of our leadership classes, I did list a lot of them that are actually filter in to this webinar. But I have 5 minutes left according to the clock. Do any of you have questions or comments? I really appreciate you sharing today. That was awesome. I loved it. Um, so any questions, concepts to share? I loved what you did share. Oh, I got to move down. There's some messages here. For some reason, let's see here. Some really good comments. Um, not reacting to problem like way when you're not feeling quite overwhelmed. Yeah. Sometimes people just want to know someone's understanding them. Yes. And I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here. You all have been in this. Um, oh yes, the slides. Mariella will be sending out the audio, and it'll come with the slides. Um, why can help define purpose. That is so true. Finding out the why exactly, and finding the purpose. Yeah. Asking versus telling show signs of respect. I love that. Deep breaths, walking, coloring. I love it. I like reading. Yeah, and doing puzzles. Uh, most people, I love puzzles, and it takes my brain away from other things looking for the pieces. So I'll do crossword puzzles as well as puzzles. Working with people is the most fulfilling. Learn from them. Yeah. Most of us don't sleep enough. Oh, I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up. Sleep does help. That they've done tons of studies, and sleeping does, if you can get sleep, try and do that. That is really key to self-care. Yeah, we tend to focus on our mistakes. We do. Yeah, I'm really good at beating myself up more than anybody else could, and I've tried to learn to stop that. I'm not successful yet, but I'm still working, still trying to sustain. um
Hey, Susan, we actually had a question come in. Do you have
oh,
any tips or tools to manage emotions? For example, I was denied free PD because the supervisor couldn't see how energy relates to water. I'd love to know how to be able to be in control. Good question.
wow, that was a lot of questions in there. So, um, and what was the first question? Tips to,
Tips or tools to manage emotions, and
yeah,
if there are any methods to stop seeing red, how do we start?
yeah, stop seeing the red. There's a number of things that I've used. One is, oh, obviously we can't stop having emotions, but one, take a deep breath before you say anything, or if you're going to send a nasty email, just save it. And then when you've calmed down, then send it, because otherwise you're just going to escalate the conflict. The other time I'll just get away and walk, and when I've had meetings and saying, if it's getting heated or whatever, or I'm getting too emotional, it's like, you know what, I gotta take a break, bio break. Nobody's gonna argue with that. I may or may not, but it's getting out of the situation. Um,
Excellent. And we had one more come in. I know we only have about 2 minutes, so thank you all so much for hanging around. How do you address family/friends who unintentionally tend to get in the way of maintaining
yeah,
resiliency?
yeah, that um family's really good at that, and plus they know your hot buttons, so they tend to, oh, I'm gonna see if Susan will get a rise out of that. They're really good at that for some reason. So, couple things that I do with my family is I'll change topic or sentence, or friends. I'll see them less, and find friends who Or I'll talk to them. Sometimes I've talked to them too, saying, "Hey, that's not really helpful." And oftentimes they don't intend to do that, as you said, but so I'm gonna assume good intentions. Hey, we've been friends for a long time, but just want to tell you something that is kind of bothering me. We learn from childhood to manipulate. It doesn't go away when you, isn't that for sure? Ah. All right. Yeah, it doesn't go away when we grow up, but we do kind of have to manage that. So, and the thing is people you can manipulate, but if it's for a good reason. I'm gonna be honest. I manipulated my kids growing up, gave them only half part truth, but it was to keep them safe. So, um, but you have to have your heart in the right place. To manipulate to bad is not good. Uh,
Absolutely.
Oh, there is a lawyer who gives advice like this. Did you mean to say that? Is that really what? Oh, I love that. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
stealing
you.
that. That's
Thank you.
awesome.
All right. Very cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie. And then again, thank you all so much for attending. I think this was an amazing session on staying resilient. And thank you so much, Dr. Hydorn, for all your insight.
Have a wonderful week and wishing you all the best on your building your resiliency.
We got this, everyone. Alrighty, we'll see you all very soon. And if you need any more info on this topic, please don't be afraid to visit us at Watermark Learning or at that link I dropped in the chat. Alrighty, bye for now,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.